For decades, my people, the people of the Niger-delta, have raised a cry for our health and the healing of our environment. That cry, now passed down a few generations, long went unheeded. Communities lost their lands and livelihoods. Activists lost their lives. For over 60 years of oil exploration in Nigeria, the Niger-delta has borne the brunt of the externalized cost and reaped comparably little of the benefits. We should not politicize the fight for lower carbon emissions, ecological preservation and biodiversity restoration of the Niger-delta region, as this fight is critical to the survival of the entire Nigerian populace. If the Amazon rainforest of Brazil, producing 20% of the Earth's oxygen, is referred to as the lungs of the Earth, the Niger-delta mangrove forest, which is the biggest in West Africa, is undoubtedly the lungs of Nigeria. So before I speak about shaping Nigeria's socio-economic future through a just transition to clean energy, I remember my people's past and our present. Today, I honor the sacrifices we have long made, and I raise my voice to ensure that the labors of our dear heroes are not in vain. As the world catches up to the impact of the detrimental global energy practices and excessive consumption, there is an increased urgency to protect the earth and the future of humanity. There is a global cry for just transition and the health of the people and the environment. In 2015, the UN's International Labour Organization advised that a just transition for all towards an environmentally sustainable economy needs to be well managed and should contribute to the goals of decent work for all, social inclusion, and the eradication of poverty. As we discussed Nigeria's post-oil socio-economic future, it is imperative that we keep the advice before us at all times. After all, the world has seen other energy transitions, from biomass to coal, and from coal to oil. Unfortunately, those transitions resulted in worse economic outcomes for the already vulnerable communities. Which is why when I hear the phrase just transition, I focus on the word just. And I invite you all to do the same. The transition from oil to renewable energy and the net zero emissions must be a just one. Not only in word, but in deed. Without prioritizing justness, we risk further harm to our people and our environment. Justness demands two key types of preparations from us. It demands that we center the people and communities that have been most affected by preparing them for the long-term impact of climate change. Secondly, it demands that we transition every Nigerian by ensuring equitable, renewable energy access, creating viable and sustainable livelihoods in an alternative energy industry, and rehabilitation of our environment. Certainly, this is the just transition that all Nigerians deserve. And after over 60 years of supplying the world with vast energy resources, this is the just transition that the Niger-delta deserves. Iwereland has suffered the ills of Nigeria's hydrocarbon dependence for over 60 years. Not only are we host to the oldest offshore field in Nigeria, Oka Field, Iwereland is one of the wealthiest hydrocarbon producing zones per square kilometer in the world. The carbon footprint left in our environment is alarming. It is only just for the developed countries to fulfill the Paris Agreement of remitting $100 billion per annum to developing countries, with the Nigerian government earmarking a sizable portion to extractive communities like Iwereland and her neighbors in the Niger-delta. In the Warri Kingdom, we are determined to maximize the opportunities of a global green transition. The redesigned Iwereland Economic Master Plan is premised on the inevitability of a post-oil future. Our plan envisions an economy based on wetland agriculture, aquaculture, and ecotourism. An economy supported by clean energy, transport, and communication infrastructure. As the leader of Iwereland, I ask the Nigerian government to keep Nigerians at the heart of its just transition. The success of our nation's energy transition plan will depend on how people-focused the implementation is. Therefore, the government must work closely with stakeholders beyond planning and policy making. We can speed up Nigeria's just transition by adopting a place-based approach that aligns the implementation of the National Energy Transition Plan with the community strategies like Iwereland's Economic Master Plan. I say place-based because community needs vary across Nigeria. Therefore, the government must work with individual communities to address energy poverty and other risks while identifying their unique opportunities and creating strategies to take advantage of them justly and equitably. This will require strong leadership at the sub-national level, particularly in the Niger-delta, where most of the transition resources will come from. My people and I are prepared to offer this leadership. The Nigerian government must also take a bold stand globally to ensure that developed countries live up to their responsibility as agreed in the Paris Accord by fulfilling their pledge towards climate finance for developing nations. Last year, we welcomed the Just Transition Declaration signed by developing countries at the COP26 in Glasgow. It includes a commitment to support developing countries and emerging economies in achieving a just transition to clean and resilient growth pathways. The world has long benefited from Nigeria and Africa's energy resources, yet our continent has historically contributed less than 4% of greenhouse gas emissions. Unfortunately, this doesn't shield us from the effects of global warming. In fact, we are disproportionately affected, as the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 2022 report shows that Africa is warming faster than the global average. Our people are more exposed to acute energy, food, and water insecurity. Our government must push for action, not mere commitments. But this is not a call for handouts. This is a call for justice and accountability. And it is a critical call because Africa will play a key role in combating global warming. In fact, I'll take that again. And because Africa will play a key role in combating climate change. For example, the Niger-delta is home to the second largest swamp forest in Africa, making it a critical biodiversity hotspot and a carbon sink in combating climate change. Finally, all of us here, activists, civil society organizations, government representatives have the onus to educate the populace, to support the government, and to influence our communities. For many right now, a transition implies an uncertain future. But the reality is that fossil fuel exploitation has already done harm and will continue to harm the future unless we are proactive and firm. We must not be so invested in maintaining the already failing status quo that we jeopardize the future out of fear. Our transition to renewable energy is not something to be left to only Nigerians who can afford solar power or other renewable sources. That will not be nearly enough. It is time for us to take a stand for Nigeria's future. The environmental and socio-economic impact of fossil fuel exploration in Nigeria exists beyond statistics. It is stamped in our polluted land. My people carry the scars in our bodies. So we must work towards a just transition. We must work towards redressing the wrongs of the past and securing a healthier and more equitable future. This is a journey to the future my people have long prayed for, and we welcome it wholeheartedly. Thank you all for listening.